I delivered a 7-minute speech in 30 minutes. It was the most boring piece of human speech you probably have ever heard in your life. And the most horrifying thing is that as I was speaking, I knew that because people were looking at the wine and were ordering more wine. And I'm sure if you chart the consumption of alcohol in my wedding, you see that it rocketed up when around 15 minutes.
Hello, Nitay-Yair. How are you?
Hey, how are you? I'm very well. Thank you very much for having me on your podcast today.
Thank you for coming. I'm so excited to have you here. And dear friend at home, Nitay-Yair is a speaker I came across while I was binge watching the World Championship of Public Speaking this last August 2021. And when I started interviewing different award-winning speakers or Toastmasters members a few months ago, I thought to myself, I must reach out to him. And lucky for us, he agreed to come spend some time with us. Who is he? Yes. You'll have all the time in the world to speak, Nitay. I need to present you properly. I wanted to get a good, idea of who you are before I even let you speak a word.
All right.
Bear with me. I hope you're sitting down at home. Nitay-Yair Levi is from Sydney, Australia. He is the first runner-up in the 2021's World Championship of Public Speaking. Woo! He is passionate about the art of public speaking and exploring innovative methods to deliver messages to an audience. He heavily researches ecology. In case you don't know, is the study of algae. I never know how to say algae. Algae or algae?
English is my second language here, Patricia.
Me too. The study of algae. You know those slimy green things in the water? Yes. And he loves to research music, theater, and other arts in a search for tools to enhance his personal stories and speech delivery. He is the managing director at Koenig Heritage, which is a deep value investment holding company based in Sydney. His primary focus is to acquire businesses with strong focus on long-term holding and growth. Finally, and most importantly, he is a husband and a father to his adorable little princess. Let's jump right in. Nitay, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself and how is it like to be in his shoes as a little boy, a teenager, and a young man?
That's a big question, Patricia. So, such a pleasure to be here. I am originally from Israel, and I came to Australia when I was 21, literally a week after my military service. As a young boy, and what some of the audience may know, but the majority is not, I'm actually quite an introvert. I'm very shy. It comes as a surprise to a few people. And I was the biggest nerd on the whole planet. When I was a little boy, my glasses were bigger than my head. It was literally glasses wearing a human being, not a human being wearing a glasses. And I was such a nerd. I would much rather hide in a corner with, and this is not an exaggeration, with the encyclopedia and just read the encyclopedia for hours and hours and hours and hours. So maybe that's where that idea of research came into life, that desire to delve into details. But that was me as a young kid. My teachers in school used to say I whisper, I don't talk, because I would speak like this. I was very shy. I would never raise my hand. So that was me as a young boy. When, as a teenager, it's a long story, but my brother went to a judo class. Judo, to those of you who don't know, is a form of wrestling. Yeah, and my younger brother, and he came home, and he said, "Oh, I have to show you this. It's called submission, ground submission. Very basic. It's first class, first submission." And I couldn't move. Yeah, I just couldn't move. And my young brother was half my weight. So it fascinated me, right? That this little creature, my brother, who was very skinny, was holding me in this ground submission, which he learned in 15 minutes, I assume. And I couldn't move. I couldn't move. So the next week, I went with him to judo, and I was 10, and I became the national champion of Israel for judo, and that was my teenage life. I was heavily into sport, into judo. I was on the national team, and then due to an injury, I had to retire. The reason I mentioned that is because I think what competitive sport did for me gave me the discipline and the grit to run across long distances, not physically run, or I'm not a great runner, but have the mindset of, hey, your competition, in my case, I was aiming to go to the Youth Olympic Games, is in 4 years' time. And for 4 years, you're not there. So you fail and you keep going and you keep going and you keep going and you keep going. In hindsight, even though I didn't know it at the time, that was the seeds of the way I approach stuff today, which is long term. That's the reason I think why I'm able to delve into certain concepts and keep them going for a long time. But that's childhood. I didn't do it on purpose. I can't say I have special skills. It's just I happen to be a nerd hiding with books, and I happen to go into sport in my teenage years. And it just happened to be that serves me today, or not. I don't know. But that's who I am as a little boy. That's who I am as a teenager. As an adult, by profession, I am a lawyer. I used to be a lawyer, and then I'm now doing investments, which is far from being creative as an artist. Yeah, that's me.
Wow. So much of what you just said resonated with me, because my brother and I, we were into karate, which is another form of martial art, very, very young. And that actually helped me build discipline and that perseverance that you're talking about, that dedication to it's huge, like learning how to know your place in the world. I don't know how to explain. There's a whole hierarchy with your master, I guess you could call him. And you learn how to, it's fascinating actually. And there's a lot of mind game. People don't realize that there's a lot into the mind. It's not a physical art, basically. It's really, I find it comes from.
I think it builds you psychologically. It builds you psychologically. It gives you psychological tools. In my case, again, I didn't do it on purpose. I don't have any special skills. It just happened that I was in that environment and not out of choice. Sorry, I chose to go to that environment. But those tools, I think, help you later on in life. So we all have it. There's no superpowers in this world. We all have it. We just need to see what our past is and see, okay, what tools do I have from my past, and let's see how I can utilize it in our own life.
Yes. And I'm just curious, what made you choose because my daughter's trying to look for, she's applying to universities right now. And like, how is a 19-year-old child supposed to know what they want to do? So I'm just curious, what made you choose to go into law in the first place?
Oh, Patricia, listen. Okay, so I'm gonna. This is world reveal, not quite, but this is world reveal why Nitay-Yair Levi want to be a lawyer. I never thought my major in high school was art. I was painting. My whole clothes had paint on it. I used to sculpture. I loved it. Right. I always thought I'm going to end up as an artist. Then I went to the military, and to those of you who have been to the military, art and military not really go hand by hand, and this whole dream was kind of erupted into nothingness. Then I finished my army. I came to Australia. That's why I came to Australia afterwards. And my mother said, I have a Jewish mom. I can say it. I'm Jewish. I love her very much. And she said, oh, you need to go and study. Not that I wanted to study particularly. So I thought, what do I want to study? And I signed up to university to do a degree in philosophy. And I was so happy. I got in, and I, all the way from Australia, called all the way, half a world away. And I said, Mom, guess what? I got into university. And she said, that's fantastic. I could feel the happiness in the voice. And she said, what are you going to study? And I said, philosophy. And she was quiet. Now, to those of you who have Jewish moms, you know that when a Jewish mom is quiet, you should be scared. And I was no different. And then in a very calm voice, and my mom is not calm voice, she said, Nitay, philosophy is a wonderful degree after you finish your law degree. So as a good little Jewish boy, I went and changed to a law degree, because for a Jewish mother, you're either a lawyer or a doctor or a failure. So I chose to go to the law. Did I enjoy it? Yes, I have. I have enjoyed it very much. I enjoyed law, but it was never what I meant to do, if that makes sense. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it very much, and I still enjoy it. But I wasn't a lawyer in my in my being.
Yes.
And later on, I obviously moved to something that gave me more enjoyment, and that's investments.
Mm. That's so wow. And we often, I don't know how many millions of humans on earth that get sucked into a situation that they don't want to be in. It's not even just a profession, even like life situations or even partners, if anything. But yes, I just
because it's expected of us. We're bound to social norms. It's very hard to break those social norms. And social norms, by the way, don't have to be grandiose. It can be a massive coffee in the morning. Why? Because everyone else do it. Or I have to get married, or I have to go to university, or not, right? Or I have to finish school, or I have to do whatever is expected of you in that setting. And what I describe is obviously a very Western cultural setting. So the key is to be, and I'm actually writing a speech about it now. The key is to be you, the real you. That's the key. Now, is it easy? Of course not. Like, think about us in the day-to-day. 90% of the time, we're not the real us. We are walking around this world complying with what is expected with us to do. And I wish I don't have it. I wish I could spread my wings and just be me, but perhaps that's a journey, and why not? Let's go that journey.
Yes, absolutely. I'm 100% with that. I've discovered my true me a few years ago, so I was
and
past
it's hard.
40. Yes.
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard. I'm past 40 and I'm only now starting to go through that journey. It's very, very hard, Patricia.
But it's liberating. It's very liberating.
Of course it is. Of course it is. And that's why we do it. Yeah.
Yes. All right. This is so exciting. We just got started. So try to stay focused here because I feel like I could talk to you for hours. So at this point, you are a lawyer who goes into investment. Investment gives you more joy. What on earth made you decide to go visit the Toastmasters Club for the first time? Like, what pulled you to the public speaking world from there?
That's actually quite funny. The answer is I got married. Yep, marriage got me into public speaking. And yes, I'm able to talk to my wife. That's not the reason why I went to Toastmasters. I got married and I had to write a speech for the wedding. Now, my wife, who is a trainer by profession, she's like a teacher, and she gave her speech. And she did an incredible job, Patricia, incredible. She's not a Toastmaster. She never did public speaking professionally. But if we sit there and as a Toastmasters or public speakers and see, she ticked everything right. Yeah, she was phenomenal, and everyone had a tear. It was fantastic. And the main reason it happened, I know now, is because she was connecting emotionally. She was speaking from the heart. And she was speaking. And then it was my turn to speak. And I was reading from a page. And I said it before in different groups, and I'll repeat it now to those audience who hear it for the first time. I delivered a 7-minute speech in 30 minutes. It was the most boring piece of human speech you probably have ever heard in your life. And the most horrifying thing is that as I was speaking, I knew that because people were looking at the wine and were ordering more wine. And I'm sure if you chart the consumption of alcohol in my wedding, you see that it rocketed up when around 15 minutes into my speech because people just needed something to do rather than listen to me. But inside I had a lot of stuff to say. Like how much I love my wife, how much I love my family, how much I'm thankful for everyone that came to the wedding. But what I wanted to say from the inside didn't really match what I was saying on the outside. There was this gap, which for the audience was not filled with nice words for me. It was filled with alcohol to go through the pain of listening to them. And then I listened to the recording. I finished, I knew it was bad. And then I listened to the recording and I thought it wasn't that bad, was it? And when I listened to the recording, oh my God, it was terrible. So then I thought, no, I have a lot inside. I need to fill that gap and get better in this public speaking, which sounds like a cliche, but nonetheless the truth. So I Googled, I went to our friend Google and I wrote public speaking courses, how to get better. I saw some videos. This weird organization came along called Toastmasters. I said, I know how to grill a cheese sandwich. I don't know to be a master in toasting sandwiches. And then I YouTubed a lot, the research side of me came out, and I saw some of the world championship speeches, right? I'm like, this is amazing. So I went back to the grilling toasts websites. I realized that's nothing to do with that. And it opened my world completely. I joined my first meeting to a club in Sydney CBD, where I live. And it was the City Tattersall Club, which is also the club I've represented last season in the World Championship of Public Speaking. And from the first meeting, everyone was so welcoming, such a warm environment. What a great organization Toastmasters is. And obviously that helped me a lot with public speaking. So I found my people, my home in Toastmasters. But that journey started because I got married, and I probably made some of the audience slightly drunk that night by speaking.
Slightly,
Yeah.
you say?
Yeah, I'm being polite. Yeah.
Oh wow, it's so oh my God, I've been to a lot of weddings. I'm of Haitian background, so I've been to a lot of weddings, and it's insane the number of people, like that uncle or that aunt that goes up and they just start talking and they just don't stop, and they mean well, but sometimes it's really quite horrifying.
That's me.
Yes, it was you. It's no longer you, Nitay.
Oh,
But,
I hope that was me, right?
Yes.
Hopefully I'm not like that today. But Patricia, that's an interesting point, because in our day-to-day, we do actually a lot of public speaking. Like when we speak to people on the phone or face-to-face, that's public speaking. But that stream of public speaking, i.e. standing in front of 100 people or 200 people or whatever the number of people there is, it's not a common stream to us. And it's funny because a lot of the skill set that we have over the coffee shop, say if I would be sitting with you in a coffee shop, a lot of the skill set, a lot of that conversational discussion, when I told you about how my holiday in Timbuktu was last year, we lose that when we go and speak to 100 people because we're nervous. We feel like we need to put shields, and when really that conversational elements are the best way to connect with 100 people. So that's why it happens. I believe so, right? And just a matter of being aware of them.
Yeah. And there's a huge need. Okay, let's just talk about toast just 2 seconds, or toast, or just even making for instance, whenever we go to a birthday party, a barbecue, something, a few family members or friends are together, there's always somebody that wants to raise a glass to something. I was always mortified. And I always try to hide to never get selected, or I would find any reasons not to do it. That was me my entire life. At work, even sometimes it's a celebration of some kind, or you have to congratulate somebody or whatever. You have to speak in front of them. All eyes are on you. Or a eulogy. My sister recently passed away, and I gave a eulogy. So it's just all the time we put in this situation, and it's mortifying. Mostly, it's mortifying. And I actually did a video. Maybe by now, I started my YouTube channel a few months back, and I have maybe about 20 some videos by now. My most seen video, I don't know, usually an interview could be seen 100 times or whatever. Some of them 200, even 500 times. My video called 8 Tips on How to Give a Great Toast. Today, I think there are 3,600 views.
Wow.
So YouTube is pushing it. There's so many people researching how to give a toast.
Wow.
That somehow it's huge. So there's a need clearly for people to exactly where you started.
Absolutely. I mean, it for me it went further than that, right? Like when I first met my wife, I had always a gap between all of my thoughts inside. I'm pointing at my heart. This is instinctively because things I really believed in, but there was a gap. I couldn't express them. There was this distance between what I feel inside to what the outside. I remember distinctly when I met my wife. I wanted to tell her after a few times, but in a social setting, I wanted to say, hey, I really like you. Do you want to go on a date? Yeah. But instead I said, hi.
Not like that.
Oh yeah, it was like that. It was so awkward, right? But there was a gap, right? There was a gap. And that ability to bring whatever our beliefs, our messages, and we all have it, and to be able to communicate it well to the outer world, to the outside world, that for me is magic.
Yes. It's
magic. And especially when people listen. So I went back to being 10 years old or 8 years old, hiding in a corner with encyclopedia, trying to understand why is there this gap Why can't I express? I was fascinated by it, right? Fascinated. I'm still fascinated by it. So that's where that passion for delivering messages came through, overcoming that gap. And it goes exactly to your point. People who give a toast and it's terrifying. The question is why? There's a gap, because they can do it. They know what they want to say. But from here to the outside world, there's this gap. And our task is to minimize that gap.
Amen. Amen to that.
Amen. Easy said than done, for the record.
Yes, but there are tools in place in the world.
There are, yeah, the skill set. That's right, yeah.
Yes. All right. I need to go right into your semi-finalist speech. Okay, actually, I'm skipping a few things here, but it's fine.
It doesn't matter. I'm led by you.
Yes. The scars of the past. What a memorable experience and powerful message it was. I was fully immersed into your story, like sitting on the edge of my seat and like looking at you like, what is he going to do next? And it was just a work of art. Please, I encourage you to go watch it at home. It is a work of art. I'd like to ask you, Nitay, what motivated you to start competing? Because now at this point you joined the Toastmasters club in Sydney, and now you decided to start competing. Why?
So I wasn't planning. I didn't even know that Toastmasters had a competition. So when I joined, it took me 6 months to do my icebreaker. I was very afraid. Yeah. And then I've done the icebreaker. And then a month later, or a few months later, I wanted to do my second speech. And someone in the club said, hey, you're going to do your second speech. By the way, there is a humorous contest next week, or whatever it was. And how about you just deliver your second speech as part of the contest? Don't worry about the contest, but we need people to speak. So how about you just do that speech as part of the contest, the humorous contest? Or, oh, there's competitions? I didn't even realize it's a competition. I said, okay, I thought it's an event or something. I thought, okay, I'll do my second speech as in the humorous contest. And I thought, oh, so if it's humorous, maybe I need to put some jokes in it so it's funny. Now, I'm the worst joke teller in the whole world. Ask my wife, she'll tell you. Yep. So I thought, okay, so I injected a few jokes in it. One of them was me and my mom laughed the same. And I thought, oh, maybe I can use it in that speech. And that was my second speech in Toastmasters. And that was in that contest, I finished second, right? And I wasn't really disappointed or not disappointed. I didn't really realize what it meant, and the person who won was better than me. But then I realized that the audience was laughing at my jokes. I can't tell jokes, and they were listening to the message that came through. And I thought, this is really interesting. Why are they listening? Again, I was fascinated that the gap was minimizing for me. It wasn't perfect, but I now minimize the gap. I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. And then at the end of the competition, the division director, who for me was the equivalent of God, his name is Mike McKellen, he volunteered me. He volunteered me and told me at the same time, he said, Nitay, you are going to do the international speech contest. And I said, of course I'm going to do the international speech contest. I was always wanted to do the international speech contest. As soon as God left, I went to Peter Anderson, he's another member, sat next to me, and I said, Peter, what's the international speech contest? So, and I took that speech, the humorous speech, which wasn't great at the time. And I said, okay, maybe I'll work on that, right? And I entered that into my first year doing the international speech contest, which was in my first year in Toastmasters. And in my first year, I was heavily focused on winning. Yeah. And that was because remember, as a shy kid with a big gap between the inside to the outside, the fact that people are laughing at your joke and listen to you, it gave me an ego boost. It gave me ego confidence, right? And I wanted that. I was craving that ego positive feedback, right? Like, oh, that was a great speech. I was looking for those words. That was a great speech. And it made me, if I look deeply why, that was the reason. Yeah. But that was a mistake. That was a huge mistake. And in my first year, I was craving this ego boost. And two, I was running and trying to learn the skill set because I was very new. Vocal variety. Oh, and it's like running a marathon. Like, oh, I need shoes. Okay, shoes. How long is this marathon? Right? Like, oh, what am I doing here? Right? Oh, it's raining. Oh, well, I need to use gestures. What's gestures, right? So that's how my first year competing was. I was very lucky in my first year to win my district. District 70. But I did not progress beyond the regional quarterfinal. And I was so upset. I'm like, because the ego boost, right? How can I not progress beyond regional? Well, do they know this is the best speech in the whole world? This is an art form. And the truth is, the speech wasn't that great. It was terrible. And the fact that I didn't progress was like a boxing glove straight to my face. Yeah. But that was great because it knocked me down.
Yes.
And when you're down and that whole hot air balloon of ego just pop, there's two ways to stand up. One is to blame the whole world of your failure. And two is to say, what have I done wrong to get to this level of the floor? Because it's not the world's fault, it's mine. Mm-hmm. I made some decisions. And that was hard. That was really hard. Because all of a sudden you realize you're actually not that good. Two, you've done a lot of mistakes along the way. Three, you have a hell of a lot to learn, buddy. And four, the world is not always equal. Yeah, and that was liberating. So in the second year, I decided to still compete. But this year I decided, or last year, I decided, heck with the contest, right? Let's focus on things that matter. And that was building from the ground up. And stop focusing on ego and winning, because especially when you're delivering speeches, if you try and serve your ego and not serve the audience, you're not going to be successful. We need to be egoless when we come to speaking. So the second year, I joined the contest again. My approach was very different. It was very different. I said, I don't care about the winning, and it's about delivering a message. And if you notice, in the second year, I did The Scars of the Past, which is a message that is incredibly dear to me. And the other one is Advice for Life, which is a story about my mother, right? Which, funnily enough, my final speech was the second speech I ever did in Toastmasters. It changed a lot, but that was the origin. And those two topics, the scars of the past must not define your future, and always show your love, which is the second speech, are concepts and messages that are incredibly dear to me, and I wanted to share them with the world. And that was my focus on the second year. So that's how I started to compete. And that's how the journey shaped me to focus on completely different things. Yeah.
That's amazing.
That was a very long answer, but that's the answer.
Yes, no, it's a beautiful answer. And it's fully aligned with what a lot of the other champions that I've interviewed have said, is that the year that they won was the year they tried not to win.
I had someone, Patricia, I've had someone said to me, and he got me thinking, he said, oh, that sounds like something someone who won would say, don't focus on the winning. That sounds like something that someone would win would say. And I was polite, and I didn't say the answers that I'm about to share with you that I wanted to tell them, but I wanted to tell them the reason someone wins is because they didn't want to win. That's why they won. And I think you'd hear that message consistently from the world champions and anyone who got high up in the World Championship of Public Speaking, and I believe they mean it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I also believe that, yes, absolutely. And I believe that it's also a part of surrender, of surrendering to a higher power, or whatever people want to call it. But when you're realizing how small and how we're not in control, I know we like to be in control. I'm the first person to love to control a lot of things, but in most things in my life, I surrender to a higher power, and that's what dictates things. Like every little variable of how is the judge feeling that day, are they in a cranky mood, and is your message going to touch to them the most? And there's just so many factors that it's impossible. We cannot say. And something else, I'm not going to point, you'll have to watch my other interviews, but one of my guests recently said something, I was not supposed to win. It was somebody else's time to win that year. I shouldn't have won. And I had to tell them very kindly and lovingly that if it was that person's time to win, they would have won. So I said, you won because you were meant to be the winner. Okay, so I'm just saying there's a lot of things that are out of our control. I'm just saying.
That's right. And that you use the word surrender, right? And I love this word, surrender. And I think you need to surrender to your messages and also surrender to who you are. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the real you, as I said before. But that's hard. That's very hard. Because especially in public speaking, you're judged. You're going to get criticized. Yeah. When I came up with ideas of covering the screen, I won't lie to you, I was fearful. Like, is the world going to get it, what I'm trying to do here? Yeah. But if you surrender to your message, you'll do okay, right? It doesn't matter what the result is, you'll deliver it in your own way. And I discussed this concept elsewhere, but I want to raise it today as well, because I think it's very important for, if you're listening today, well, I guess if you hear me, you are listening, but this is the concept. Our name in 400 years will not be remembered. No one will know who we are. And that is a sad and scary thought. Maybe our grandchildren will do some research and they'll see Nitay-Yair Levi, like one line, born in Israel, moved to Australia. It'll be three dots. I say, oh, that's my great-great-great-great-grandfather, but they will know nothing about me. Zero. They may say, oh, he liked public speaking. Oh, he was a lawyer. But my whole life will be summarized in 3 words. He was a lawyer, or he was, so. And when the reason I'm saying that is when I lost the quarterfinal in my first year, I started to research what made great public speakers great or memorable. That was my approach, which was, again, still wrong approach, but that's how it started. And then I went back, and then I realized I actually don't know who was the greatest speaker in the 11th century, 12th century, 13th century, 14th century, 18th century. I couldn't find any info. Who was the best public speaker? Zero info. I don't know. But then there was a mind shift in that process, because I couldn't find who was the best public speaker in the 18th century. I don't know, let alone the 17th century. But then I realized I was doing a mistake. The greatest speakers were not speaking, they were living. And if you look at religious figures, now I don't want this to be a religious conversation, or people who changed the world, right? They didn't care less about public speaking. They were passionate about the message, and they were delivering it with everything they got, whether it's in writing, whether it's in speaking. If you tell them, paint your message, I bet you they will make the best painting in the whole world, because it was about their message. Yeah. So if we talk about messages, a lot of the messages from even 2022 years ago, again, I don't want me to be religious here, I still remember today. Does anyone know whether that person had great vocal variety? I don't know. Whether he had great gestures? Who cares? The message is still here, and you know who that person is. I won't say it on purpose. If we dedicate ourselves to messages and making this world better, it will all fall into place, because you're creating a connection, an emotional connection with human beings, and that will survive generations. So I hope that in my lifetime I can generate messages that are important to me, that my grandchildren won't say he was a lawyer, but he'll say, oh, he sought for the world to be better. Yes. You want people to always show your love, and now we're showing more love in society. If that's how I'm remembered, that's the best way to be remembered, not lawyer, accountant. No one will remember that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes, Nitay. I concur. Let me ask you this. Can you tell us what your first reaction, because now it's your second year competing in 2021. Can you tell us what your first reaction was when you found out that you made it to the 2021 final round, the top 8, after beating 30,000 contestants and outstanding contestants, the best in the world? Did it take you by surprise?
So I'm going to start from early on, yeah, because what I'm going to say, I don't mean it to sound arrogant. I had zero reaction, but I'll explain to you why. Right? I had zero reaction. I wasn't emotional about it. I wasn't. There was no. It transcended beyond surprise, disappointment, or whatever the result was. I would have been the same. Right? Let me explain why. Early on in my first year, when I started to speak or in front of the especially in my icebreaker, which is, to those of you who listen, is the first speech in Toastmasters, I was incredibly stressed and nervous. We all have it, you know, the butterflies and they're kind of putting all of your delivery down. So I developed a concept throughout the 2 years that I'm in Toastmasters. I call it, I'm sure there's other names for it, but I call it an emotional routine. Emotional routine. An emotional routine is a routine that I do before every speech, before I start speaking, because I still get very nervous. when I go and speaking. But what the emotional routine does, it puts me in the emotional level that I need to be to deliver that speech. And each speech will have a different emotional routine. For example, if you are delivering a humorous, you need to, it's a wedding, you're lifting everyone up and you want everyone to cheers and be happy. There's no sad moment in that speech. Your emotional routine before the speech need to get you to that level of emotion, happiness, and full of energy. For example, you may come to the wedding and had a bad day. So you can't go to the wedding and say, hey, I'm so happy to be here. Hey, let's cheers for the groom and bride. No, you need to be happy. So you build this emotional routine to be able to deliver the speech consistently in that level. And again, if it's a emotional speech and you want to touch people, there's a different emotional routine that you do that. Why am I mentioning that? So as part, I developed it even further. I said, before the contest, I have an emotional routine, nothing to do with the speech. And before I speak, I have an emotional routine. And that's to consistently put me in the mindset that is best to serve my message. It took me a while to get there. I'm still not perfect, still working on it. So every time there was a result announcement, whether it's in the club, whether it's in the area, whether it's in the division, whether it's in the district, whether it's in the semi-finals, whether it's in the finals, I try to work very, very, very hard to be mentally stable and not distracted by the message. Sorry, by the announcement, but rather keep focusing on the message. If they would have said you're not progressing to the semi-finals, I would have been still in the same emotional state. But if they say you progress to the finals, my emotional state was the same because there's not a lot of time. You need to be ready to deliver your final speech. And I can't mentally be distracted or thinking or happy or sad, or none of that can. If you're too happy, that distracts you from the message. If you're too disappointment, that distracts you from the message. So you have to be emotionally stable in that. So every time there was a contest, or announcement, I kept telling to myself, it doesn't matter. I was fortunate and privileged to deliver a message to a growing number of audience every time I did it. So the focus is on stability, mental stability. Sounds a bit going in circles here, but it's the truth.
No, I love it actually, because then that means that you were grounded. You stayed
Correct.
grounded,
yeah.
And you stayed focused, which
Correct.
are huge.
Correct.
Huge,
Correct.
huge, huge.
People used to say to me, are you nervous? Yeah. And I said, not at all. And it's the truth. I wasn't nervous. The first year, if you'd ask me, are you nervous? I'd be like, I'm myself. I'm so scared, right? I'm so scared. And I was, right? But it took me about 2 years to develop these emotional routines, to be laser focused. If I'm too happy, I'm going to distract myself from the message. I can't do that. If I'm too sad, I'm disappointed, I'm going to distract myself. So that's focus. And it's called emotional routine. And there's different techniques to get yourself into emotional routine. Yeah, maybe one day I'll write an article on it.
Yes, I'll be the first one to read it. And I will apply those principles. I'm actually following the tips of a lot of my guests who told Toastmasters to compete. I just started, so it'll be a year now in May when I think about it. Oh my God, it's almost.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, It's my first contest. I'm in the process right now, and I will keep all your tips in mind. And I'm not doing this to win. I'm following again some other advice I'm doing it for growth and for fun. And sure enough, I've received a lot of help. Even you've helped me actually a lot with my speech to up the game of it. And it's true. It brings it to a whole other level to know that you have to give it to not just your club, but a bigger area. So now I'm at the division level. Let's see where it goes. But I'm
congratulations in your first year. Wow, that's
yes.
Incredible.
Yes, but I'm perfectly okay with not going further. To be honest, I don't want to sound unambitious, but again, it's for the fun of it. And at least next time I interview somebody, I can, now that I'm talking to you, I can say I'm in a competition. Before I was always saying, I was terrified, the embarrassment, the humiliation. I would have never, my first interviews, I would never. But after 10 champions told me and other Toastmasters, do it. So I said, you know what, fine, I'll do it. But it's true. But now because I'm doing it.
It also forces you to take the first. The reason I like the contest, one, every stage that you go further, you spread your message to a larger audience. Just think about it. And it's incredible. Where else in the world would you get it, right? In your club, you may be, 20, 30 people listening. In your area, you may have 100 people listening. In your division, I'm exaggerating, I don't know how different divisions are different, but 200 people, and all of a sudden 400 people, and all of a sudden 10,000 people, and all of a sudden 350,000 listening to you. That's a great platform to deliver messages that are important to you.
Mm-hmm.
There's nowhere else in the world that you can reach that audience who wants to listen to what you have to say. And that's an incredible privilege, incredible privilege. Yeah. And you need to serve them, not your ego.
Yes. Oh, yes. Absolutely. Yes, I joined Toastmasters not to speak at Toastmasters, but because I'm trying to help certain women in need. That's why I joined Toastmasters. So this organization has given me the...
And this is the reason why in 1 year, you're already in division. That's exactly the reason. Because you're doing it for a greater purpose, not to win a contest.
Yes. Yes, I guess. Yes. Whew, let's see where this goes, but thank you so much. Oh, all right. Let's talk about your World Championship final speech, Advice for Life. You just mentioned it was about your mom. I will give no spoiler. Wow. You took the virtual experience to a whole other level, never seen before, in my opinion. And maybe the closest that I can think of was Mike Carr in the 2020 virtual championship, which was the first time that he did funky things. You can go check out my interview with him if you'd like, but essentially you were like all the way up there, you know. Actually, you even surpassed him actually, because you really, it was a whole art form. Anyway, I will not give any more spoilers. Do go watch it at home. It is such a beautiful and inspiring message of love. My question to you, Nitay, how do you come up with your themes? Like, what motivates you to share those messages with your audience?
You know, it's a good question. How do I come up with the themes? I look at my darkest periods in life and I say, what lessons do I have there? Yeah. And it needs to be dark periods that you're able to speak about or laugh about. If you're not able to speak about it or laugh at it, don't share it with the audience. You're not ready, right? But if your scar, pun intended, is healed, share it with the audience. Show your scars to the audience. Because there's a lot of people who are going in one way or another the same way, the same dark periods as you have. And if you can help them and take them to the next level, that will be helpful. So in terms of the themes, obviously the scars of the past, and I won't give too many spoilers, is about healing our own scars from the past and not letting them shape our future going forward. That was an incredible message to me, a lesson in my life. But by the way, I'm not 100% able to execute it yet, but I'm trying. And I thought, I really want to share this message with the world, with other people, because we all have scars. And a lot of the time, those scars shape our future. So we need to acknowledge them. We need to be vulnerable and say, this is me. This is my scar. That's how I'm trying to go into the future. I may not be 100% successful, but I'm trying, right? And I wanted to give that inspiration to the audience. In terms of the final speech, which was always show your love, it sounds like a very simple message, but to me it's universal. I won't go to the detail too much, but there was a period when me and my mother did not speak for 8 months. Yeah, about 8 months, 10 months even, and that was wrong. It was my fault. That was wrong. And when we spoke, I realized I missed her very much. You know, she's an important part of my life, and all this disconnection is not positive, not to any human being. You know, getting hate and keeping it. So I thought, okay, this is a message I really want to share with the world. Show your love, especially to those people who love you and give you advice, whether you want to hear that advice or not. So I wrote the speech, Advice for Life. Yeah, and I embarrassingly shared with the world how I laugh, which is, if you haven't watched the speech, it makes sense when you watch it. Yeah, terrible laugh. Yeah, we're talking about vulnerability. Here we go.
It's hilarious.
Yeah. So that's the two speeches, and that's why I chose those themes. And for example, I decided not to compete this year. I was going to, and then decided not to compete. I have more than two, but this year I wanted to do 2 messages, and I started to write the speeches. And I said, if I'm doing this year, I'm not doing justice to the messages. So I'd rather take time and put the effort and time to shaping those messages to something I'm comfortable delivering to the world. So it's not about contest anymore. It's about delivering messages that are important to you. And we all have messages.
Yes.
We all have lessons from the past that someone needs to hear. We all have it. So that's the speeches. Now the delivery methods, it's up to you whether we have time for me to expand on them. But I took a bit of a different approach.
You don't have to go to the zoo after this, so it's up to you.
so the way I approach the delivery of speeches this year is I often try and talk about it because it's not called public speaking. It's called the art of public speaking. And unfortunately, including me at the beginning of my journey, for the first year, I didn't even realize there's the word art in the phrase, the art of public speaking. It's an art form. And because it's an art form, it's so liberating because you're not confined to a set of rules. It's an art. It's about expression. Yeah. It just happens that the tools that you're using in this medium is public speaking tools. But there's no one, there's not two, there's not three, and it keeps shaping and changing over time. For example, if you look at paintings, which is an art, right? Painting. If you look at the cave painting, or if you look at Picasso painting or modern painting, they're very different, but they're all still painting, right? So I thought, hold on, why can't public speaking evolve? And we've seen it. We've seen public speaking evolve. You know, in the past, if you look at the history of the contest even, people spoke behind a lectern. And then one guy, I believe it was, I can't remember the name, in the 70s, step away from the lectern and started to walk on the stage. And people said, that's crazy, what is he doing? That's not public speaking. And yet today, 40 years later, 50 years later, everyone moved on the stage. Mike Brown was singing in his speech. That's not public speaking. It's the best way to engage your audience even further. Memorable speech. Darren LaCroix fell on his face. That's not public speaking. That's the best tools to engage your audience and deliver a message. Press Vasilev had the sound. That's not public speaking. Best way to deliver a message. And there's a great other example. David Henderson wore a bomber jacket in his final speech. Or you had the doctor outfit. That's costume. Why are you wearing costumes into public speech? That's not public. That's silly. Best way to deliver a message. That's evolvement over time. And I believe that as speakers, we have to be innovative. And all of those names that I mentioned before, they didn't just do it to do it. They did it to deliver a message. And they did not care what the world would say. They said, if I wear a costume, or if I move from the lectern, or if I fall on my face, or if I sing, or if I do, that helps me to deliver a message. That's mind-blowing to me. That's artists. They're artists, right? And I can only aspire to be an artist like them. I also believe that the screen that we have in front of us, which we're doing the interview today, that's how in the last 2 years, to those of you who are watching this 5 years from now, yes, we had COVID-19, and yes, we had to deliver speeches on Zoom. So hi there to people in the future. The reality is I was using a lot of the tools and skill set from the stage and brought it to the virtual environment, and it just doesn't work because it's a different medium. We need to evolve. It's an art form. It's like saying, hey, can you use the same hand painting that you use in cave painting into modern art on a canvas? You can, but it's not going to look the best, right? So you just need to evolve. It's still a painting. It's still an art form. So that's how I started to explore how can I use the medium a bit better and use it as an art form. And I looked wide and long into other art forms, beatboxing, movies, because movies you scream. And you, Pat, when you watch a movie, you watch it for 2.5 hours and you don't move. So why do you move when I speak? So it fascinated me. So that's the scene, the length of shots, the creating movement, and dolphins. There's a lot of research that goes into this. And even movies evolved, right? From black and white. And then they had the guy in a piano sitting to create a bit more engagement because it was boring. It was black and white. And then they added voice into the speeches. And then they added color. And then they said, oh, no, wait. We can have 3D glasses. And you sit there and you go, wow, the dinosaur is right in my face. But today you put a VR goggle and you're there, right? The reason I tell you all of this journey is because I believe that especially today, and especially because of or thanks to COVID-19, we have another paradigm shift in the art of public speaking. We've seen public speaking evolve in, say, roughly the 90s or early 90s, storytelling become the main feature in public speaking. If you notice today, almost all of the speeches you hear, especially in the contest, will have a story. Yeah. And I'm all in support for it. That's a fantastic tool to use, and I'm going to use it because that creates a relatable connection. And that was a paradigm shift. All of a sudden, it's not just formal speeches. It's, hey, let me tell you a story about me, and here's a lesson, which is fantastic, right? I believe that now we're witnessing another paradigm shift. Paradigm shift. And this paradigm shift, by the way, is not only applicable to public speaking, it's all over the world. Everything that we do, and it's called immersive. And I believe that the next paradigm shift, or the forefront that where we are today is, or we're exploring, you know, it's uncharted territory here, is immersive speaking. And it goes beyond, you know, descriptions, and it goes beyond, imagine me being in the water swimming. The word imagine is a very powerful word. It goes beyond that. It goes beyond that. It's the sounds, it's the smells, it's the vision. I want the audience to not just see it and hear it and imagine it, I want it to feel it. And that's immersive speaking. Now, I think we're still at the forefront, we're exploring it. And in my own world, that's why I try and brought different techniques from outside of public speaking, the noises, you know, to those of you who don't know, the first speech I did was about a war. And I had to boom, you know, sounds and sirens. And I wanted the audience to be immersed in the speech, not just listen to it, immersed in the speech. And there's different techniques. That's why, to those of you who haven't watched it, I covered the camera a number of times to signify standing behind a wall, or in my final speech to show transition of time. It's immersion. I want them to be in that time machine when they go with me from the age of 7 to 17 or 27. I want them to hide with me behind a wall. I could have said, I was hiding behind the wall and blah, 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 blah. Oh, I'm so scared. Oh my God, I'm scared. That's not good enough. That's not good enough. You need to immerse the audience in it. I want the audience being like, oh God, I'm behind a wall now. Yeah. So that's, I think, the next paradigm shift of public speaking. And I think we can learn from other art forms. Whatever it is, explore. If you like to paint, bring painting into your speaking. If you like to sing, sing in your speeches. If you like to play an instrument, do it. Be you, the real you. And bring those other art forms in as long as they help you immerse the audience in your message. That's what I believe we need to do now. That's the new paradigm shift.
Wow. So I guess that actually answers a question I was going to ask you about how can someone be a phenomenal and memorable storyteller? And you just said it. Essentially, right?
Be you.
Yes.
Be you. Look elsewhere. Yeah. By the way, for the record, you must know the tools of public speaking. You must, if you're a new speaker, stop, learn and delve and sit in that corner with that encyclopedia and study vocal variety, study gestures, study stage usage, study how to write speeches, study writing. You have to have those foundations before you go and explore. And that was my journey too. In the first year, I delved so much into those foundations to understand them. And once you have those strong foundations, you go, okay, let's close our eyes and let's imagine what else can we bring to this wonderful world and not be confined only by those tools.
Yes, sir. Yes. And actually today I was talking to a girlfriend of mine who will remain unnamed. And she was telling me about how she hates being put on the spot in meetings and she never knows what to say. And I was saying, honey, you know that thing I've been doing, Toastmasters? You need to come by a club to check it out. And she goes, I can never, ever, you know? I said, that's exactly why you should come by, you know? So just people are just so terrified of it. And I understand because I was that person. So my question to you, who's so extremely passionate about the art of public speaking, you know, it was not always the case in your life. You were shy before, and this was just not your world. What would you like to tell someone right now who has a terror of public speaking or talking in front of a camera?
I will use the Nike catchphrase, just do it. Yeah, just do it. But it's hard. It's very hard, and I acknowledge that. The key is to just be you, yeah? And understand that you have experiences in your life that you can share with people, and they need to hear it. That's a Mark Brown. Someone needs to hear your message. And also focus on being an artist. Just express yourself the way you are, not the way you think people expect you to express yourself. Because if you try and express yourself the way people expect you to express yourself, you will fail because you're so stressed about, oh, should I do this or that, or should I raise my voice? But if you express yourself as your own self, just you, authentic you, it's much easier.
Yes, noted. I'm going to have to rewatch this interview all over again and take notes. Take notes. Okay. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up so I can let you go enjoy your time with your family. What would you like to tell someone who is filled with ideas and dreams, but they keep getting rejected, ridiculed, and misunderstood? What would be your best advice for them?
Well, I look at the mirror when you just said that, because that was me, especially with taking risks in terms of, say, taking the online presentation to an immersive environment. And I think we need to have a PhD in failing. That's what we should say. We should be expert in failing. And I want people to say, when you say, oh, don't ask, I tried this and I failed. I'm like, you tried this, listen to what I tried and failed. This and 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 this. Because with every failure comes learning. But the issue is that we're afraid to fail. And if we want to achieve something in public speaking or in life, really, we have to fail. We have to take the first step and acknowledge, hey, I may fail, but I've done the first step. So that's number one. Number two, we are measured by the way we stand up from a failure. We dust the dust off our shoulder and we go and conquer the next challenge. So one, have a PhD in failing. Two, after every failure, stand up, dust your shoulder from the dust, and just keep walking.
Duly noted. Thank you so much, Nitay, for this. This is great stuff. All right, so what is next for Nitay-Yair Levi? Please do share.
Oh, I'm still the kid hiding in the corner with a big encyclopedia, and that's what the future holds. I really want to delve into the art of immersion and that paradigm shift, and try and explore it further and see how can I even push more the messages to the audience. I really think that immersive speaking is the next uncharted water. And I would like to delve into that more.
Wonderful. And finally, if someone in the audience would like to know more about you or reach out to you, what is the best way?
The best way is on Facebook. Type my name, Nitay, Nitay Yair, and my family name is Levi. There should be only one result, and that result should be me. Thanks, Mom and Dad. And that's the best way to do it. I don't have a professional website. I'm unlikely to have one. And message me on Facebook, and that's how we met, Patricia. And I will try my very best to reply ASAP. I do acknowledge I'm not very good on social media.
Yes, wonderful. All right, let me share my main takeaways with you. There are a lot of them, but I'll just share the ones that stood out the most. For competitors, stop trying to win, focus on delivering the message. The scars of the past should not define who you are. If you can't laugh about it, don't share it. Just be you and just do it, like Nike said. And express yourself the way you are, not the way others would want you to do it. And don't be afraid to fail. Get a PhD in failure, be proud of it, and take the first step. And finally, the best one of all, always show your love. You laughed, you did it.
I did, it's great. Can I add one more?
Yes.
Be an artist.
Oh,
Don't be a public speaker. Be an artist.
Yes, 100%. Any parting words before we we put an end to this lovely interview?
Richard, I'm happy to speak to anyone about anything.
Wonderful. What a pleasure. Thank you so much, Nitay.
Thank you very much.
Yes, and at home or at work, wherever you are, thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this time with Nitay half as much as I've enjoyed it. And I will leave you with my usual, because I feel very strongly about it. The power of your voice can change the world. Find it and use it. See you in the next video. Bye.